CEO who never smiled for 20 years suddenly breaks down after new secretary's shocking song. The air crackled in the boardroom as Jack Hastings, the CEO of Hastings Industries, sat frozen in place. His face, carved with the sharp lines of anger and resentment, rarely showed any emotion. 20 years of corporate wars had stolen the joy from his heart, leaving only a mask of cold indifference. But that day was different, it would change everything. As the clock ticked ominously, a fresh-faced new secretary named Lucy stepped up to the podium. She was just a bit over 21, with a voice that could raise the dead. That morning, she walked into the office, her smile bright enough to light up the dimmest corners of Jack's soul. Yet, when her voice filled the air with a haunting melody, every ear in the room perked up. It was a song that held the weight of sorrow and secrets. Tension hung like thick fog, drowning out the usual bustling chatter of the office. "You all have never felt this before," she sang, her eyes closing as if she were channeling someone beyond this world. Secrets from years past echoed in the words, touching something deep in every listener. It was as if she was telling a tragic story that only Jack knew yet, he had never dared to share. Gasps filled the room, jaws dropped, and hearts raced. Even the coldest executives leaned closer, captivated for the first time by something other than profit margins. The room fell into an eerie silence when Jack's expression shifted. No longer the unbreakable titan of industry, he blinked hard. For the first time, a flicker of anguish crept across his usually stoic face. "Before we continue, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." The cracks in his facade deepened. Something inside him, a long-buried pain, a secret long-kept, threatened to spill over. The melody dripped like dark honey into the air, wrapping around them like a sinister embrace. Someone in the back whispered, "Is he crying?" Shock rippled through the crowd. Jack, the man who had sworn to never show weakness, was breaking down right in front of them. The atmosphere shifted, tension thickened with every note Lucy sang. This wasn't just a song, it felt like a portal to the past, dragging Jack along with it. What truth lay buried beneath his stony exterior? What memories had he refused to face? The curious whispers swirled like a storm, each question more desperate than the last. As Lucy hit the last note, the room held its breath, waiting for Jack's next move. Would he reveal what lay hidden in the depths of his heart? Would he finally let his guard down and share the tragedy he had kept secret for so long? The office blinked under the weight of expectation, the air vibrating with disbelief and hope. Jack's face twitched, a tempest brewing behind his glazed eyes. This was just the beginning, and the real story was just about to unfold. Jack's chest felt tight, like he was caught in a vice. Every eye in the boardroom was fixed on him, brimming with a mixture of concern and disbelief. He could almost hear the cautious whispers, bouncing off the polished walls. What is happening to him? Is he going to say something? Those questions taunted him, swirling in his mind like a storm that he tried to blink the moment away, to process the raw vulnerability that shook his very core. Lucy's song had stirred something he thought was buried forever. Memories flooded his thoughts, cascading like dark water over jagged rocks. He remembered a younger version of himself, filled with dreams, laughter before the weight of responsibility anchored him down. "Mr. Hastings?" Lucy's voice broke through his reverie. It was soft, almost a whisper, but it pierced through the thick air like a knife. Instinctively, he looked at her. She stood there, wide-eyed and hopeful, the perfect blend of innocence and courage. Her talent had shattered his fortress of indifference, and now he was exposed, hovering on the edge of uncharted territory. Jack swallowed hard, his throat dry. He wasn't used to this. He was supposed to be strong and unyielding. Yet, that strength felt like a facade now, peeling away with every second of silence. He could see the anticipation in the crowd. They waited, some even leaned in, desperate for the truth to spill from their cold-hearted CEO. "Why did you sing that song?" he asked, surprising himself with his own voice. It was hoarse, quaking with uncharacteristic emotion. The question hung in the air, ripe with desperation. I didn't know it would affect you like this," Lucy stammered, her confidence faltering under the weight of his intensity. "It just came to me. I felt like it needed to be sung. And you had to know that it would." Jack's voice trailed off. What did he want to say? How could he confront this moment that felt like a runaway train heading straight for a cliff? She looked at him with those innocent, unwavering eyes, filled with the understanding of a stranger who somehow saw through his layers. "You need to let it go, don't you? You can't carry it forever, Jack." 3 seconds ticked by. The room was still, pregnant with tension. Just then, a senior executive cleared his throat, shattering the spell. It was a reminder of the corporate world that still demanded Jack's attention. Sir, should we proceed with the presentation?" another voice suggested, breaking the spell. The distraction caused Jack to feel the weight of the moment fade slightly, but he was still spinning in confusion, torn between wanting to retreat back to his icy fortress and the raw urge to embrace the unraveling. Presentation can wait," he snapped, surprising even himself. "This is far more important." Gasps echoed again, mixed with murmurs of disbelief. Was the iron-fisted Jack finally losing his grip? The executives looked both fearful and fascinated. Jack turned back to Lucy. "There is something I need to say, but can I trust you to keep it safe?" Lucy's eyes widened, reflecting a mixture of excitement and concern. "Of course, I promise." But was it that simple? The voices in his head clashed, the past warning him to hold back, the present urging him to open up. Just as he opened his mouth, the lights flickered ominously. The room plunged briefly into darkness before the backup generators buzzed to life. Gasps erupted once more. Screams punctured the silence as chaos flooded the room. What now? What shadows were lurking just beyond the flickering lights? The darkness swelled, and Jack knew that the secrets he was just gathering the courage to reveal might not just be his alone. What if there were others who held pieces of this puzzle? "Lucy, we need to," but before Jack could finish, he heard a crash from outside the boardroom. The air thickened with the threat of something lurking just beyond the light. And with that thought, dread settled in. What if this darkness was coming for him too? The time for answers was near, but could he face the truth? He gritted his teeth, bracing himself, ready to unravel it all. The chaos escalated like wildfire. The crack of splintering wood echoed from just outside the boardroom. Jack's heart pounded loudly in his chest, a primal beat that drowned out the uncertainty swelling inside him. He felt the weight of every frantically working brain in the room, a swarm of thoughts flitting around like moths to a flame. "Jack!" A sharp voice cut through his haze. It was Sylvia, his longtime assistant, eyes wide with alarm. "We need to secure the exits." The sound of hurried footsteps rushed toward the boardroom door. Jack's fingers clenched on the edge of the table, a physical anchor in a sea of unpredictability. He was still on the brink of revealing everything, still wrestling with whether to let Lucy in on the secrets he had shoved into the darkest corners of his mind. "Lucy! Stay close!" He barked, the command instinctive, protective. He could not let her, or anyone, fall victim to whatever threat was looming beyond those walls. The room was a tapestry of fear, executives standing frozen, wide-eyed, whispering frantic theories to each other. Jack knew his reputation was hanging on a thread, and with each passing second, the stakes grew. "Get back!" A voice shouted from the hallway, sharp and commanding, as a shadow moved at the border of the light. Everyone's tension exploded into panic. Jack shoved the chair back, ready to spring into action. Another crash resonated, louder this time. The door buckled no, it was blasted open. A figure stumbled through. It was dressed head to toe in black, face obscured by a mask and hood. Jack could only see wild, fearful eyes and an expression of sheer urgency that sent a jolt straight through him. "Get down!" the masked intruder shouted, not a moment too soon. A second boom, followed by a flickering shock of gunfire, erupted as alarm bells began wailing from the wall-mounted alarms. "Everyone, get out!" Jack screamed. He knew there was no time to think, no time to process. He reached for Lucy, who stood frozen, fear reflecting in her gaze. Without deliberation, he grasped her arm and propelled her towards the back of the boardroom. "Jack! Wait!" she cried, but his instincts were roaring too loud to heed her call. He could not let her become another victim in this unfolding nightmare. The evacuation plan had long been drilled into his brain. He pushed Lucy ahead, her feet barely able to keep up with his urgent pace. The wall of executives exploded into movement, some screaming hysterically while others frantically pressed buttons on their phones, but he could already feel a dread pooling at the pit of his stomach. Before they could exit through a side door, the masked figure lunged forward, spouting threats with a voice laced in venom. Jack's heart seized at the confrontation. Everything he was trying to shield now laid bare. "Stop! I won't let you hurt her." Jack's voice erupted over the chaos, fueled by a mix of adrenaline and protective rage. He stepped in front of Lucy, shielding her. Whatever this man wanted, Jack wasn't about to let him take the very thing that had ignited a spark deep within him. In that moment, time crystallized. A slow-motion dread enveloped them as Jack stood firm, adrenaline coursing through his veins. But as he faced the threat, another thought struck him. Was this chaos connected to the buried truths he almost revealed? Had the past truly come back to claim him? "What do you want?" he yelled, his voice echoing back with a desperate urgency. The figure hesitated, just a beat too long, and Jack recognized it like a match striking flint. This darkness might hold secrets buried beneath years of denial. And in the split second after that uncertainty trembled in the air, something flashed across the masked face. Recognition. Fear. Before Jack could analyze the glimmer, the intruder lunged, shattering the moment into relentless mayhem. The truth was no longer merely something to uncover, it was crashing down around him, begging to be exposed. Jack braced himself for whatever awaited him. But would he be able to withstand both the chaos outside and the storm raging within? The world twisted into chaos as the figure lunged. Jack instinctively raised his arms, feeling every muscle taut as he braced for impact. The force of the intruder's weight drove them both to the ground, crashing onto the polished floors. Around them, the sound of panic morphed into a cacophony of desperate cries and shattering glass. Sylvia's scream sliced through it all, igniting something deep inside Jack. He had to protect Lucy. Forcing the masked man off him, Jack rolled to his side, scrambling back to his feet in one motion. Lucy stood frozen near the wall, eyes wide and shimmering with unshed tears. That look tore painfully at Jack's chest. "Lucy!" he grunted, still grappling with the masked figure. "Get out!" she finally yelled, voice shaky but fierce. "Go!" The temporary distraction worked. Jack lunged, grabbing the intruder's wrist, twisting it until he could see the eyes behind the mask wild and frantic. "What do you want?" he demanded again, breathless, the weight of urgency pushing through every syllable. The intruder hesitated, just as they had moments ago. "Not you." The voice wavered, as if caught between desperation and clarity. I need the files." Something clicked in Jack's mind. The files? Panic merged with fleeting clarity. What files? Before he could reason further, the stranger surged forward again, knocking Jack into an office chair. Jack grunted, feeling the edge bite into his back. He instinctively kicked out, catching the intruder off balance. "Jack! Move!" Sylvia yelled again, her voice an anchor amidst the whirlpool of chaos. With another surge of adrenaline, Jack leapt up, bracing himself for round two. But this time, the intruder was preparing too. They lunged, and he dodged seamlessly, adrenaline sharp and invigorating. Outside the boardroom, the wail of police sirens pierced through the chaos, a siren call of help that danced right on the brink of hope. Yet, all he could see were the wild eyes of the masked figure darting around the room. That hint of recognition flashed across the intruder's face again. Jack felt it, fear mixed with frustration. "Who sent you?" Jack shouted, voice edged with disbelief. "What do you really want?" But the masked figure seemed torn, almost vulnerable, before they shouted back, "Just let me have the files." This wasn't supposed to happen. The urgency in their voice struck a chord deep in Jack. He saw a glimpse of anger mixed with fear, a reflection of his own as he faced an unknown enemy he couldn't understand. "Just tell me the truth," Jack shouted, and the words fell heavy in the air. Suddenly, the masked figure broke from Jack's grip and took off towards the door. Jack's instincts kicked in again. He sprinted toward Lucy, grabbing her hand. "We can't stay here. We need to find a way out." With Sylvia guiding the way, they burst through the now ruined door. The hall outside was chaos incarnate, people tripping over each other, remnants of broken furniture scattered all around. A sense of dread settled over Jack like a heavy fog, then it hit him. The files. It meant so much more than he thought. Everything he had spent years hiding could be exposed. In the midst of the turmoil, Lucy's hands tightened around his, grounding him, reminding him of what he could not afford to lose. "Jack, please," she urged, her voice raw but firm. "What was that about?" "The files?" He glanced back, scanning the room for answers, but all he found was a shadow vanishing around the corner. "I don't know, but it's connected to everything." Lucy's face tightened, the truth dawning on her. "Everything? Your past? What if this is just the beginning?" Before Jack could respond, a booming crash echoed through the corridors, followed by panicked screams. The intruder was still out there, and this wasn't just about the files anymore. Jack knew exactly who they were, and the weight of that truth felt heavier than any moment he had faced before. With a deep, steadying breath, he pulled Lucy closer, determination igniting in his gut. "We're not done. We need to find out what they want before it's too late." And as they stumbled into the fray of chaos, another thought flashed through Jack's mind. What if the secrets buried in those files were far darker than anything he ever expected? A sense of dread grew. This was about to become very personal. Would they survive whatever storm was brewing? Jack's heart raced as they weaved through the crowd, adrenaline propelling him forward. The smell of fear and panic hung in the air like smoke, thick and choking. Each scream, each crash, sent jolts of urgency through him. He had to keep Lucy safe. Nothing else mattered. "Which way?" Sylvia cried, her eyes darting around, searching for a path through the chaos. "Down the stairs," Jack shouted, pointing toward the nearest exit. As they barreled toward the stairs, he felt Lucy's grip on his hand tighten. Her breathing came in short bursts, and he cast a quick glance back at her. Fear clouded her eyes, and it pierced him deeper than any blade could. They descended the stairs, the sound of their footsteps echoing off the concrete walls, two hearts racing against the clock of chaos and fear. But just before they reached the bottom, the lights flickered, plunging them into darkness. "Jack!" Lucy gasped, her voice trembling. "It's okay, we'll get out," he reassured, but doubt gnawed at him, making his stomach twist uncomfortably. He was leading them into the unknown, and their safety felt precarious. Suddenly, the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind them, heavy and deliberate. Jack spun around, straining to see through the darkness. The flickering lights came back to life, illuminating the space just enough to reveal the silhouette of a figure ascending the stairs. The intruder. "Run!" Jack shouted, shoving Lucy and Sylvia forward. The fear in his voice propelled them into a sprint down the remaining steps, further away from the intruder's reach. But the masked man wasn't far behind. He was relentless, a shadow born of fury and desperation. They burst into the lobby, where chaos still reigned. People pushed past each other in a frantic escape, and Jack felt that familiar sense of dread swell in his chest again. "We need to find somewhere safe," he urged, scanning the vicinity. "There!" Lucy yelled, pointing toward a small cafe tucked away in the corner. Jack spotted the entrance, a glimmer of hope piercing through the storm of despair. They dashed toward it, desperate for respite. As they stumbled inside, Jack pushed against the door, bracing it with his back. The distant cries faded to a murmur, replaced by the hurried breaths of his companions. They stood in an awkward huddle, eyes wide, hearts pounding. "What do we do now?" Sylvia whispered, glancing around at the scattered chairs and tables, as if expecting answers from them. Jack's mind raced. The adrenaline was still coursing through him, but reality began to settle in. "We've got to call for help. The police need to know what's happening." "Yes. And we need to figure out what those files are about." Lucy chimed in, her urgency matching his, but before Jack could respond, the cafe's door rattled violently. His stomach dropped. The intruder was right outside. Moments later, a loud crash echoed, and the door burst open with a force that slammed against the wall, sending a jolt through their bodies. "There you are!" The masked figure snarled, eyes burning with a wild intensity. Their voice was a mixture of rage and desperation. "Stop hiding. Just give me the files." "Why do you need them?" Jack shouted back, his heart thundering in his chest. "What's so important that you break in here like this?" But the figure just stepped closer, the mask glinting under the dim lights. "You have no idea what you're dealing with, do you?" The threat behind those words loomed over them like a dark cloud. Jack felt Lucy shudder beside him, and he knew they were running out of time. Then, amidst the overwhelming tension, something flickered in the intruder's eyes, a hint of vulnerability that contrasted sharply with their aggression. Something deeper lay trapped behind that mask, and Jack couldn't shake the feeling that the intruder's desperation was more personal than he realized. "Wait!" Jack called out, his voice catching in his throat. "We can talk about this." The figure hesitated, just for a moment, but it was enough. Jack's mind raced with what he could say to turn this situation around. Could he save them? Could he uncover the truth hidden within the chaos? But the moment slipped away like sand through fingers, and suddenly, the figure lunged again, intent on reclaiming what they believed was theirs. As Jack grappled with the intruder once more, he couldn't help but wonder, how did they get involved in a mess that would stretch his limits and lay bare secrets long buried? And just when would the truth come crashing down around them? Jack's muscles tensed as the intruder surged forward, rage and desperation blending into a dangerous cocktail. This time, he wasn't going down without a fight. With a swift movement, Jack sidestepped, grasping a metal chair from one of the nearby tables and swinging it at the intruder. The clang echoed sharply in the small cafe, drawing the eye of several patrons who huddled behind their tables, eyes wide, breaths held. "Jack!" Lucy screamed, pure panic lacing her voice. Amidst the chaos, Jack locked eyes with the intruder, whose mask was barely illuminated in the dim lighting, revealing nothing but the tension radiating from their body. There was a moment, a split second, where Jack thought he saw a glimmer of doubt flicker across their expression. He couldn't let this slip away. "Stop. Just stop." Jack shouted, his voice resonating with an authority he didn't truly feel. "You don't have to do this. Let us figure this out." But the figure lunged again, ducking under the improvised weapon. They were quicker than Jack had expected, and before he could react, a gloved hand shot out, gripping Jack's throat. Jack gasped, eyes widening as instinct kicked in. "Where are the files?" The intruder hissed, leaning closer. The question was punctuated by hot, frantic breaths that grazed Jack's face. "Files? I don't know what you're talking about." He stammered, panic rising like a tide in his chest. Glancing over at Lucy and Sylvia, he noticed their fear morphing into something like determination. They weren't just sitting ducks, they were a team. They had to be. Jack! Sylvia shouted, snapping him from the daze as she lunged forward, grabbing a small ceramic vase from the table and hurling it at the intruder. It shattered against their shoulder, providing just enough distraction. Jack stumbled back, breaking free from the grip, a wave of warmth spreading from his throat as he wheezed for air. "Run!" Lucy urged, her voice charged with urgency. Jack seized the opportunity. He whirled around, propelling Lucy and Sylvia toward the back of the cafe where a narrow service door stood ajar. It felt like diving into an unknown abyss, every instinct screamed at him to flee and not look back. The three of them bolted through the door, the cool corridor soothing the heat of panic. Jack caught his breath, glancing back just in time to see the intruder barreling through the entrance, fury etched all over their masked face. "What now?" Sylvia whispered, her voice trembling as she pressed against the wall. "Find a way out." "We can't lead them to the exit," Jack replied, his mind racing. They couldn't allow the intruder to corner them again. Around them, the corridors twisted, barren of life, each step echoing ominously as they navigated the darkness. Jack's heart thumped wildly, drowning out reason. He could still picture the figure's glinting eyes, burning with need. "Here." Lucy pointed to a door that appeared to lead to a storage room. They rushed inside, closing the doors softly behind them. Jack felt the knot of dread tighten in his stomach as he turned and locked eyes with Lucy. "We can't stay in here forever," she said, her face pale under the fluorescence flickering above. "Just for a minute," Jack whispered. "We need to think." But the muffled footsteps grew closer, tapping against the floor like a metronome counting down to disaster. Jack could hear the heavy breaths and the urgent whispers resonating behind the door, searching for any weakness. "What do they want?" Sylvia murmured, panic fluttering in her eyes. "I thought it was just about the files," Jack replied, frustration rising. "But it feels far more personal." And then it hit him, a flashback, something he couldn't quite piece together. Suddenly, the truth felt like a noose tightening around him. Before he could voice his thoughts, the intruder slammed against the door coldly, rattling the frame, sending shivers down their spines. "Where are you?" The masked figure growled, their voice slicing through the air, full of an unsettling mix of desperation and fury. Jack exchanged glances with Lucy and Sylvia. There was no way out, and they were out of time. The walls felt like they were closing in, and the truth loomed just out of reach. As he pulled the door tight, resolving to stand their ground, one burning question echoed in his mind: what secrets lay hidden in those files, and would they be the very thing to unravel them all? With a burst of courage, Jack realized he needed to confront the shadow standing before them, whatever that may lead to. Jack's heart raced, he could feel the thud of panic hammering against his chest. The door shuddered on its hinges. Behind it, the intruder's presence loomed ominously, a storm ready to unleash chaos. The only light in the storage room flickered erratically, adding to the nausea rising in Jack's gut. He could sense the fear gripping Lucy and Sylvia, their breaths shallow and rapid. It was stifling, hanging thick in the air like the silence before a thunderstorm. Think. Jack murmured, gripping the counter for support. He almost sank into the weight of his thoughts, the urgency screaming at him to act. The files, the reason for this madness, were far more than paper, they held secrets, betrayals. Maybe we can hide, Sylvia suggested, her eyes darting to shelves filled with outdated appliances. No, Jack shook his head sharply. They couldn't hope to blend into the background. We'll just be caught. Another slam on the door vibrated through the room. The intruder was relentless. Jack's mind raced. What could they do? Listen, Lucy said, her voice trembling but steadying with resolve. If we can make a distraction, maybe we have a chance to escape. Jack met her gaze, her determination lifting the weight even a fraction. All right. What do you have in mind? Maybe we create noise, draw them away from the door somehow, Lucy said, her eyes glimmering with a wild idea. Jack felt a surge of hope. Okay, grab something. Anything. Together, they scoured the dimly lit shelves, scattering plates and cups to the ground, hoping the noise would be enough to redirect the intruder's fury. Jack clenched his jaw as he thought about the files again. The door rattled again, and the intruder's voice cut through, low and menacing. You can't hide forever. Jack winced, guilt gnawing at him. This was all his fault. The mess he had created was pulling everyone into danger. But there was no time for that now. They needed a plan, and quick. A loud crash echoed from another part of the cafe, the sound of a shelf toppling, perhaps one of the patrons trying to escape. Jack took a breath, wishing for courage to fuel their escape. He motioned for Lucy and Sylvia to be ready. As he prepared to create a ruckus down the corridor, the intruder stopped outside their door, the weight of their anger palpable in the moment of silence that followed. I'll find you, Jack, no matter where you run. Jack's stomach twisted. They knew his name. The tone was personal, a sharp dagger of reality amid the turmoil. Who was this person? What did they want from him? The realization struck him like lightning. We have to go now. Jack turned, pushing the door just slightly ajar, glancing through the sliver of darkness. He could see the figure pacing just outside, deliberating as they awaited a sound. Ready? He whispered to Lucy and Sylvia. They nodded resolutely, adrenaline coursing through them. With a heave, Jack yanked the door open wider, the sudden surge of movement catching the intruder off guard. Now! He shouted and bolted into the corridor, dragging the others with him. Chaos erupted. The clattering noise of the plates earlier now paled in comparison to the way the intruder reacted. Their eyes burned with fury and confusion, clearly throwing off their focus for just a second. Split up! Jack yelled, adrenaline pumping. They rushed in different directions. Lucy disappeared around the corner while Sylvia took a route deeper into the shadows. Jack darted further down the corridor, following instinct and sheer panic. He could hear footsteps pounding behind him, like a hunter closing in on their prey. Dread coiled tightly around him, but he couldn't stop now. Why are you doing this? He shouted back, clutching a fire extinguisher hanging on the wall, ready to defend himself if needed. He heard a low growl behind him, growing closer, the tension palpable. You know why, Jack, it's always been about you. Those words sliced through the fray of noise, like a bolt from the blue. The air chilled. Jack's stomach dropped, and confusion blurred his thoughts. Why was this personal? What did they know? He pressed on blindly, trying to shake off the unease, desperately seeking an escape. But around every corner lay a greater mystery, a puzzle that had no easy solution. As his feet pounded against the cold floor, an ugly truth began to emerge. Jack realized he wasn't just innocent bystander, he was a key player in a gripping game he never signed up for. And just as the intruder's shadow loomed closer, another crushing thought clawed at him. What if the files contained details that could change everything, revealing truths that could sever bonds and shatter lives? Jack turned yet another corner, and the stark exit glinted in the dim light ahead. Could they really escape? Determined not to give up hope just yet, he thought of Lucy and Sylvia. Where were they now? But the moment ignited with tension as the door smashed open behind him. Jack! His name echoed, a twisted lullaby in the chaos. And then he caught a glimpse of a familiar face. Get down! In that heartbeat, everything changed. Jack dropped to the ground instinctively, the urgency of the shout cutting through the chaos. He barely registered the face that had yelled, a blending image of desperation and command that struck him like a thunderbolt. Get your head down. The voice persisted, and as Jack ducked low, the sound of something metallic sliced through the air. A shot rang out, striking the wall just inches from where he'd been standing. Panic surged through Jack, and with it, an adrenaline spike sharper than before. Was this it? Was this how it all ended? He pushed the wave of fear aside, scrambling to his feet as the realization hit he wasn't alone. That was definitely Sylvia's voice. With a quick glance over his shoulder, Jack saw her crouched behind a pink cardboard display that had once held pastries, now a sad shamble in the fray. Her eyes were wide, pupils dilated with terror, yet a flicker of determination glinted in them. Amid the dire situation, he knew he couldn't let her down. Sprinting toward her, he barely avoided the next bullet that whizzed past, embedding itself into a shelf behind him. "We need to move," Jack hissed, as Sylvia nodded and rose, her legs shaking from the tension and fear. "Where's Lucy?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," Jack shouted with a mixture of panic and urgency. "We gotta keep moving." They darted toward the exit once more, Jack's focus centered on the front door glinting like a beacon of hope. Just as they rounded a corner, they found themselves face to face with the intruder, the very embodiment of menace. "Going somewhere?" The intruder's voice dripped with mockery, slow and menacing as they stepped out from the shadows that clung to them like a second skin. Jack's heart pounded, he could feel the icy grip of fear tighten around him. "Who are you?" he demanded, rage mingling with terror. The intruder smirked, the flickering light accentuating the twisted features of their face. "You know exactly who I am." Before Jack could respond, another sound pierced the tension. A distraction echoed through the hall, a loud crack like thunder, tearing through the charged atmosphere. A huge section of the ceiling caved in a few feet from them, dust swirling in the air as debris fell, blocking the way behind them. "Now!" Jack shouted, seizing the moment. He grabbed Sylvia by the arm, and they plunged forward through the tumultuous chaos. They weaved past the crumbling structure, adrenaline spurring them toward the door. Just then, Lucy appeared from the shadows, breathless and wild-eyed. "This way!" she screamed, ushering them toward a side exit just off the main corridor, a concealed escape hidden behind old crates. Jack didn't hesitate. The three of them raced toward her, the intruder's voice trailing behind like a vengeful wraith. "You can't run from your past, Jack. It will always find you." Jack's mind whirled, their words resonating with fear. What did they mean? What did he hide from? He pushed the thoughts aside, focusing on the immediate threat ahead, their escape the only thing that mattered. In one fluid motion, they squeezed through the narrow opening Lucy had found. The cold night air hit them like a slap, awakening their senses and forcing them into high gear. They stumbled into an alley, shadows wrapping around them as they ducked behind a dumpster, panting heavily. "What do we do now?" Sylvia gasped, her voice shaky and filled with unease. Jack glanced back toward the door they had escaped, heart still racing. He could feel the intruder south presence lurking somewhere close, a dark omen hanging over them. "I don't know. But we can't stay here." Realization crashed in waves as Jack understood their predicament. It was more than just survival, there were answers lurking in the darkness, answers to questions he didn't even know how to ask. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed in the alley. They were coming closer. "Hide," Jack whispered urgently, pulling Sylvia and Lucy deeper into the shadows. As they pressed back against the cool brick wall, fear settled heavily in their chests. An otherworldly silence enveloped them, interrupted only by the distant sounds of the city. What would happen next? Would the truth be revealed, or was danger only stepping into the light? In that moment of stillness, Jack's mind raced with the haunting possibilities. Was the intruder just a figure from his past, or something greater threatening not only him, but the lives of his friends as well? As the footsteps grew louder, Jack held his breath, waiting for an answer that might change everything. The footsteps stopped, hovering just a few feet away. Jack felt his heart thundering in his ears, drowning out even the sounds of the city. He stole a glance at Sylvia and Lucy, their faces were pale, and their breaths were short. Each of them held on to the fleeting hope that they wouldn't be discovered. "What if they find us?" Sylvia whispered, her voice barely escaping her throat. "Shoo!" Jack hissed. His eyes darted towards the alley's entrance, scanning for any sign of movement. Every instinct screamed to run, but fear kept them frozen in the moment. Then, to his horror, an ominous shadow passed by the dumpster, tracing their hiding spot. Their pursuer was close. Jack's chest tightened, each breath becoming a struggle as he caught a glimpse of a dark figure's silhouette. He couldn't see the intruder's face, but he recognized the tension around him. This was a moment where seconds felt like hours. Then the intruder spoke, their voice mocking yet laced with venom. "You think you can hide? You can't escape what's been written. Not today." Jack's mind scrambled for a plan. "We have to get away," he mouthed to Lucy and Sylvia. Their eyes widened in unison, uncertainty mingled with determination. Just then, the figure turned sharply and walked further down the alley. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline combined with fear. Now was their chance. He grabbed Sylvia's wrist firmly, ready to sprint. "Now!" he mouthed, his heart racing. They bolted from their hiding spot, rushing toward the mouth of the alley. The adrenaline carried them, footfalls echoing like a drum against the pavement. But just as they reached the end, the intruder's laughter rang out, a chilling sound that echoed in the dark. "Run, little birds. Run far, but not far enough." That voice echoed in Jack's mind, a haunting reminder of their pursuer's grip on them. They didn't stop to look back, their feet hammered against the pavement, desperate to put space between them and the danger that loomed. Suddenly, Lucy veered to the right and ducked around a corner, pulling Jack and Sylvia into a cramped doorway that led into a dingy building. The shadows engulfed them as the door creaked and swung closed, sealing them inside. The moment the door clicked shut, Jack's breath was pulled from his lungs. "What now?" he gasped, trying to catch his breath. "Do we call the police?" Sylvia suggested, her voice trembling. Jack knew that wasn't a good idea. The intruder could be watching, waiting. "Not yet," Jack replied, shaking his head. "If they can find us once, they can find us again. We need to figure this out ourselves." As their hearts began to settle, Jack scanned the dimly lit room, trying to formulate a plan. It was full of old furniture and forgotten items that had seen better days. Then, something caught his eye, a large map pinned to the peeling wall. "What's this?" he murmured, moving closer. The map depicted their city, marked with various locations. Jack's pulse quickened. Could one of these spots connect back to the intruder's ominous words? Before he could analyze it further, the door rattled softly, sending a jolt of panic through him. "Did you hear that?" Sylvia whispered, eyes wide. Jack nodded, feeling the cold grip of fear again. The intruder had found them already? It didn't make sense. They had barely escaped. The noise grew louder, a relentless banging now. "Let me in." The voice shouted, that same cold edge creeping into their words. "You can't keep hiding forever. I know you're in there." Jack's heart sank. Would they really have to confront this menace? Or could they find a way to slip past unnoticed? As the strain of the door intensified, Jack felt the weight of his decision bearing down on him, and he spoke in a low voice. "We have to open the door, but what awaited them on the other side? What secrets lingered in the air, waiting to be unearthed?" With every ounce of courage, Jack prepared to face the truth, as dreadful as it might be. Jack's heart raced as he took a deep breath, the dread sinking its claws into him. "When I open this door, we need to be ready," he warned, his voice barely a whisper. Lucy and Sylvia nodded, eyes wide, reflecting the mixture of fear and determination that coursed through the dim room. "I'll go first," he said, standing straight and trying to summon every ounce of strength he had left within him. "We're not letting this end here." As he put his hand on the knob, the banging grew louder, more insistent. "Let me in. You can't hide forever." The intruder's voice pierced through the wood, shaking Jack to the core. It was a cruel reminder of the urgency pressing down upon them. Jack twisted the doorknob, feeling the cool metal shift beneath his fingers. He pushed it open, revealing the shadows of the hallway outside. Just beyond lay uncertainty, chaos, and possibly answers. He stepped out cautiously, scanning the vicinity, then waved Lucy and Sylvia forward. They stepped into the hallway, pulse quickening, echoing with each breath. But the corridor was empty, the sounds of the cafe had faded into a distant memory. "We need to get to the car," Jack said, urgency rushing through him. "It's in the parking lot behind the building." They moved quickly, glancing back over their shoulders, ready to sprint if necessary. Just when they thought they were in the clear, they spotted the intruder at the far end of the hall, nearly hidden in the dim lighting. Jack's breath caught in his throat. "Run!" he commanded, taking off toward the exit while Lucy and Sylvia raced behind him. The noise of their footsteps thundered in the quiet evening air as they burst through the back door into the parking lot. But just as they reached the car, Jack heard a voice echoing behind them. "Stop! You can't escape what's coming." Fury and fear surged through Jack as he turned around, facing the masked figure that now stood deliberately in their path. "What do you want?" Jack shouted, fists clenched. This confrontation had become inevitable. The figure spoke, their voice low but filled with clarity. "I need the files. It's far more critical than you understand." "Why should I give you anything?" Jack seethed, standing protectively in front of Lucy and Sylvia. He glanced at them, their faces glued to the confrontation, their fear palpable. The reality sank in like a weight on his chest. These were not mere files anymore, they were entangled in a web of betrayal and darkness. "What if I don't want to be part of whatever this is?" The intruder paused, their silhouette wavering in the dimming light. "You don't have a choice, Jack. The past is catching up. Those files, what's in them?" Sylvia burst out, urgency spiking her voice. "Tell us. What do you know?" At this, the intruder hesitated, the mask obscuring their expression. "Truth." Jack's heart hammered. They were on the precipice of something bigger than all of them. Perhaps they were closer to the answers he desperately sought. "Then let us talk," Jack said, forcing his voice steady. "What? You trust them?" Lucy squeaked, fear still in her eyes. He didn't have a clear answer. All he knew was that the lies had spiraled too far and now they needed closure. "We have to know," he said, casting a glance back at the intruder. "Tell us what you want with those files." The masked figure released a heavy sigh, and for a moment, the tension in the air softened. They hold the key to a sudden explosion of noise from the street filtered in suddenly flashing lights, the wail of sirens drawing closer. The moment was slipping away fast. "Police!" Jack shouted. "We don't have time. We can't do this here." "Meet me at the old warehouse down by the docks," the intruder shouted back, voice harsh. "Tonight, at midnight. Or you'll never hear the truth." With no time to process, the figure turned and disappeared into the shadows of the alley behind them. "Wait!" Jack called, but it was too late. "That's not going to work," Sylvia murmured, looking down the length of the alley as if they might choose to come back. "Are you kidding?" Jack snapped, heart racing. "We have to figure out what it could be dangerous. We also have no clue what they actually know," Lucy added, glancing at Jack with wide eyes, half excited, half terrified. He felt the weight of their uncertainty settle in. "We might have to trust them. Just this once." The sirens blared in the distance as the three of them dove into the car. "Can we really do this?" Sylvia asked, worry etched into her features. "Trust isn't blind, it needs to be earned," Jack replied firmly, his heart still pounding furiously. "But we'll go to the warehouse. We'll handle whatever comes next. Together." As they drove away from the chaos, the weight of secrets beginning to lift, Jack could only hope that facing the past would finally put these ghosts to rest. He could protect Lucy and Sylvia, but could he safeguard his own heart against the impending storm? There in the darkness, Jack promised himself he wouldn't back down. No more running, no more hiding. They would confront this truth, come what may. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. As they pulled into the dimly lit expanse of the docks, the past no longer felt like a shadow chasing them, it became a challenge they would embrace together. The journey had begun. Now is the time to take action. If you're still here, you need to subscribe now, life's too short to miss out on what's coming next. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm, your support matters more than ever. Flood the comments section with your thoughts and theories about what just went down. You're part of this journey, and we want to hear from you. Last but not least, don't wait even one more second, share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this thrilling conclusion. Your support fuels us, so let us make sure we keep this story alive together.